As I'm recording this video, it is a week before the 2021 and 2022 NBA season is about to start, and Kyrie Irving is still not vaccinated for COVID, and he hasn't even given any signals that he's even considering getting vaccinated. And with the vaccine mandate in New York, he obviously would not be able to play home games this season, as we all know at this point. And yesterday, as I'm recording this video, the Nets came out and said that if Kyrie can't be a full-time player for their team, he's not going to play at all. So all sides are pointing towards that Kyrie Irving will not be playing at all during the 2021 and 2022 NBA season. Now, if you guys watch the channel, you know I'm all about talking about basketball, and really strictly basketball on this channel. I don't want to get into is this the right decision or not from Kyrie, which, by the way, I completely disagree with what he's doing here. I think everyone should get vaccinated, but not getting into that today, not getting into the details there. Just like the title says, I wanted to talk about what the Nets team is looking like going into this season without Kyrie Irving, and can they really still win the championship without him? If you guys want a little bit more in-depth analysis on my thoughts on the Nets, be sure to check out this video that I've linked at the top right-hand corner of the screen right now. I made this video a few weeks ago, really went in depth on my thoughts on this team going into next season, but today I'm going to talk about really the impact that Kyrie had on this team, and if the Nets are going to be able to get the job done without him this season. So let's get into it. Let's just talk about Kyrie first, and really how last year he had a career year by far, was really making history on the offensive side of the floor. I absolutely think that after last season, he should be considered around the NBA community as a top 12 player in the game right now, and honestly right now he's kind of in the prime of his career, only 29 years old, and last year, like I mentioned, had a career season, and I think he would carry that into next season if he was able to play. But when we look at what he did last season, Kyrie Irving became the 5th player in NBA history to average over 25 points per game and be part of the 50-40-90 club. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means you shoot over 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 92% from the line. And last year overall, Kyrie proved that he's still one of the most potent and best offensive players and scorers in the NBA, still the best shot creator for himself and ball handler in the league, and is obviously very fun to watch, which is going to impact this Brooklyn Nets team and their fan base in a whole different way that I'm not going to get into today. But just talking about his impact on the court, last year averaging 27 points per game on the dot, shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 92% from the line, which overall resulted in a 62% true shooting for Kyrie, which is well above the league average for efficiency and very impressive for a point guard like him, who's taking a lot of tough three-pointers, shots in the mid-range area, and overall he absolutely proved last season that he's probably a top 10 scorer in the game right now, still going into this season. Now, he's also proved that last year he's actually an underrated playmaker in my opinion as well. Overall, passing wise, averaging 6 assists per game last season and ranking in the top 10 in the league in box creation, which is how many open shots you create for your teammates per game. For those of you that consistently watch my channel, you know I love to use this stat. I find it very accurate for playmaking. And overall, when you watch Kyrie play, he has that impact where he can absolutely draw double teams, and if he's in a one-on-one matchup, the defender's absolutely in trouble. And with a potent Brooklyn Nets team like this, if you're sending 2 defenders towards Kyrie, that's obviously gonna not be good for your team with the other potent options that this team has, like Kevin Durant, James Harden, and also the shooters that they have on the perimeter. So Kyrie definitely had a pretty good impact on this Nets team last year offensively. Defensively, he's still probably an under-average defender, and I obviously don't think that the Nets defense will be impacted by Kyrie not playing the season at all. But overall, when you look at the stats here when it comes to Kyrie's impact towards this team, it's actually really not that much despite his historic offensive season last year, just because of how good this Brooklyn Nets team really is with their big three and Kevin Durant, James Harden, and him. Even when he's not playing, still having a duo of KD and Harden is arguably the best duo in the league, and this team has a very good supporting cast as well, who, like I said, they have very good shooting surrounding them. They added some also other options to their team, veteran options like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Patty Mills, and even a guy like Paul Millsap, who could probably average double digits this season again, be a good force for them down low. And even last season, the Nets in the regular season still had a record of 12-6 without Kyrie Irving, which is a 66.6 win percentage when you do that math, which is the exact same that they had in the regular season in total. Last season, season, the Brooklyn Nets Big Three in the regular season only played a grand total of 8 games together, and they were still able to be only 1 game back of that 1 seed in the Eastern Conference and finish with a record of 48-24. Now, we also have to factor in that in the playoffs, Kyrie got that injury in Game 4 against the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round, missed the next 2 games, and the Nets did go 1-2 in those 2 games, but that is against the team that ended up winning the NBA championship. So overall, when we look at everything I've talked about so far, it's kind of hard to really determine Kyrie's value towards his team. Obviously, he's an incredible player, easily a top 15 at least player in the NBA, but his impact towards this team and really their outcomes in games is not exactly impacted maybe as much as you might think by Kyrie Irving actually being on the floor, just because of how much depth and talent this team really has, and how when a guy like Kyrie is out, James Harden and Kevin Durant can carry that load as well and still play like the superstar players that they really are. I mean, KD, we're looking at a top 3 player in the league still, easily the best scorer in the game with his elite shot creation ability, 3-level scoring ability combined with his efficiency, and we know how good of a Harden score how good of a scorer Harden can be in isolation with his step back ability, his ability to be crafty and score in the mid-range area and around the rim as well. And last year he really took on the option of being the point guard, being the main facilitator and playmaker on this team, and ranked 2nd in the league in assists per game, 3rd in the league in box creation. So he can really be that main facilitator and point guard for this team again. KD can still prove that he's the best scorer in the league, and really this Nets team wouldn't be impacted that much. So I think you guys see where I'm coming from here. Kyrie is absolutely still one of the best offensive players in the NBA and would probably have another career year if he was able to play in this next upcoming season. But honestly, when you look at it from a different angle and a different viewpoint, with the Nets still having this stacked of a roster, they could still easily be the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they don't necessarily absolutely need Kyrie Irving to succeed at a very, very high level. Now, even though the main stats and analytics lead you to believe that the Nets don't necessarily need Kyrie Irving to be a top team in the Eastern Conference, they're going to have to have a lot more things go right for them this season. Like I said, the Nets Big Three last year only played a total of 8 games together, and we looked at how Kyrie didn't even have that much of a fully healthy season last year, but so did Kevin Durant and James Harden. I mean, KD only playing 35 out of the 72 regular season games, and yes, he was able to stay fully healthy in the playoffs, but when we look at James Harden, he did play 44 of the 72 games, still not a fully healthy season, and in the playoffs, in the second round of that playoffs, in the first game of that series, obviously we know that he gets that hamstring injury. He's left out for pretty much the first half of that series, and even when he did come back, he was obviously not the same and essentially playing on one leg. He didn't have any explosiveness, he wasn't able to get out in transition, and he even shot horribly from the field as well. So essentially, KD and James Harden are essentially going to have pretty fully healthy years. I think both of these guys in the regular season are probably going to have to play 60 to 65 games at the very least to be considered that top team in the Eastern Conference in the regular season, but most importantly in the playoffs, the Nets can really not have either of these guys in KD and James Harden get injured. Obviously, they're the 2 go-to guys on this team with Kyrie out this season, and if one of them gets injured, we really don't want to see a repeat of last year where towards the end of that second round in the playoffs, Kevin Durant was carrying the load of this team, and every play down the stretch they were going to him in the post or in isolation and having him do all of the work. And when the Nets are doing that, despite having incredible ISO players on this team like KD and James Harden, they are absolutely not at their best when they're trying to play one-on-one basketball. So both of these guys I think really need to stay healthy for this team to succeed, and especially in the playoffs, because we saw last year when KD was trying to do all the work, if you're facing an elite team like the Milwaukee Bucks, it's going to be very hard to win in one-on-one basketball, and the Eastern Conference is even better this year with now an emerging team like the Miami Heat coming in, the Atlanta Hawks, who I plan on making a video about them. They are still a very, very good team and probably a top 4 team in this Eastern Conference in my opinion. Even a team team like the Knicks, who have a very good overall team with great depth and very good defense, and a couple other teams in this conference that could surprise some people and be up near the top of this conference. A lot of these teams could definitely beat the Nets if they only have one of James Harden and Kevin Durant and they're trying to win in only one-on-one basketball. So overall, to answer the question in the title, can the Nets win the championship without Kyrie Irving? I definitely think they can, and I probably do think that they are still the best team in the Eastern Conference when they're fully healthy, but I don't necessarily know if they will. If you guys want a prediction from me, I think if the Nets can stay fully healthy and have Kevin Durant and James Harden stay fully healthy throughout their entire playoff run, I still do think they will make the championship, but I don't think they're good enough to beat a healthy LA Lakers team this season. So to conclude today's video, Kyrie Irving is obviously one of the best offensive players in the league, and it's definitely the impact of him being off of this team this year is going to be felt, but not that much just because of the talent on this Nets team. But because he's not playing this year, I don't see them winning the championship anymore. They still have a shot, but their chances are absolutely lowered. So that's going to conclude today's video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to comment down below your thoughts on the Nets going into this season without Kyrie Irving, and make sure you guys subscribe if you're new as well, as pretty much 90% of you guys watching my videos these days aren't subscribed. That's obviously a really high number, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Let's make that road to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you all next video.